This is how we used to troop around back in the days with jackets on. All these people around, just walking around, jackets, racking shit, fly head to toe, looking like Power Rangers and shit. This is how we used to. How we used to be done.
You know, growing up in the city, I'm from 103rd and Broadway. I have a subway stop on the corner. It's not as convenient as this spot, which has a subway stop like next door. But yeah, it was down the block, right on the corner. Super convenient, and that was my mode of transport. You know, I was always on the one train. You know, now we got the 1 and the 9. Back then there was no 9, it was the 1 train. But the 1 train was my predominant train in my youth, junior high, high school, and just traveling up and down Manhattan, because that's what the 1 does. So I was always on the 1 and got exposed early days to the Writers Corner 188 crew, Snake 1, Stitch 1, Cat 87, Miko, that whole kind of like Upper West Side Hispanic crew, Coco tags here and there. And I just, like jelly beans, started following the tags. I mean, the thing about graffiti, like, you know, I mean, it's like, once again, it's quite obvious. You write Frank 207, you write SJK 171, you know, Joe 136. I got a pretty good idea what streets you live on. So if I wanted to maybe go see if I could find you, let me go up to your station. And I'll get out and I'll, oh, look, there's your tag. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me just hang out here for a minute and see who rolls through. Maybe I'll see some people that look like writers, and I'll just wander around and discover stuff. And that's how I was. And that's what, to me, graffiti was. So that's what I saw. Tags on trains. And then I figured, oh, wow, I could motion tag. You know, I could write on the insides of these trains by riding the train in the opposite direction during off-peak hours, if you will. You know, when everyone's going to work, I'm going the other way. And the train, by the end of that, you know, line or the end of that, you know, direction, it's relatively empty. I'm in a single car by myself. So that's how I started tagging. I didn't like tagging in stations because I thought they would get cleaned. It was too easy to remove markers from tile, I thought. And I wasn't a spray painter yet. I was just a marker guy. You know, I didn't know how to spray paint, really. I picked up a can. I was terrible at it, right? So, but I loved, you know, I had a good signature, I had good handwriting, so I liked the markers of our era, you know, the mini Y, the uni Y. Like, I liked those. I used to mix inks with Flow ink, you know, Flowmaster ink. I would add, like, colors to the pen and streak my tags. Super corny, but creative, even if it's only in this one isolated, you know, because once you do that and you move the marker, you smear everything, you know, the effect is gone. But I was just kooky and young and, you know, but the Futura 2000 tag I created, I thought was different, you know, and
can I ask, because I've gotten 2 stories, right, which is that it was from Stanley Kubrick's A Space Odyssey 2001,
yep,
and then I also read that it was from the Lincoln Ford, Lincoln
it's all of them.
model?
Well, it's all of them. The 2000 comes from 2001.
Okay.
Because, once again, now I'm the first 4-digit guy. Sorry, Andre. You're the man. I know you just had your birthday. Happy birthday, Andre. But there were no 4-digit graffiti artists, right? There were Roman numeral graffiti writers. There were 3-number graffiti writers. You know, Seji 719 might have been the highest number. You know, maybe if you think about numbers. I mean, it might have been an 800 guy. There was no 900s yet. There was no 900 numbers yet. You know, telephone, whatever. So for me, 2000 was cool. in that thing. And plus, Kubrick did inspire me. And plus, my tag Futura, taken from the car, the 55 or whatever Ford that was later a Batman prototype, the Futura typeface, Paul Renner developed that typeface, the blender from whatever Waring or whatever company made blenders, Singer sewing machine, Futura. So the names were there. I just did the combination, but with the Futura arrows kind of like going up in space, and that was all me just doing on my own, oh wow, I'm like Mad Men coming up with some marketing scheme or graphic thing to match the identity of the brand, which was going off into space. Welcome to New York. Little did I know that in a few years, cut to a couple years later, Lenny, you're going to be on an aircraft carrier in the military where your job is launching and recovering aircraft all off the roof of the flight deck. So there was something not prophetic, but
Sure.
I was onto something. Plus, I was still a forward thinker, dreamer, at least in the sense of like, well, 2000's a year, I was 15 and I came up with that. I'm not gonna live to see 2000 actually, right? So it's not something I'll live to. It's not like I had I'm not trying to die, but there was a vibe when I was coming up that, okay, you didn't want to get old necessarily. It was like a live fast, die young vibe. I'm glad I lost that, right? But just to say that's where I was thinking when I'm a 15, 16-year-old kid.
It's relatable.
Like, I don't want to live to be 45, right? I don't want to farm out from this young life experience. Plus, like, the vibe, it's all what you were talking about in relation to what else is happening in the world or certainly in the country at that time, the city, obviously locally. And yeah, we're in the middle of, we're at war. And the nation's in a really bad spot, for all the wrong reasons, not just racial tension, but, everything. So weird time for us, and weird time for me as a kid. Once again, that's why this outcome, us being here, amongst the living, having lost so many of the angels from our story, it's a blessing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Every day is a blessing.
Yes, it is.
And let me ask you, I believe it was 1972, there was a City College student by the name of Hugo Martinez.
Yes.
That started a collective called UGA, United Graffiti Artists.
Yes.
That was largely comprised of subway writers.
Yep.
Phase 2, Snake, Stitch, Coco, Henry 161.
Yes.
And I believe they had a studio or a clubhouse of some sort somewhere uptown Manhattan.
Yep, up under George Washington Bridge. And that's the spot that ultimately I had sussed out. This is after, like I was saying, local recon and trying to find writers. But yeah, so I graduated high school in '72, June. My birthday's in November, so I'm 16 that summer. And I graduated early. I skipped a grade during my education. And so here I am. I'm a young kid. I'm definitely like too young looking. If I'm 69 now and you can say, oh, dude, you look like 61. Whatever you want to throw me 4 or 5 years, thank you, please. But back in the day when I was 16, I probably looked like I was like 12, 13, right? I looked like a little kid. I was always little Lenny all that time. So basically, feeling it, because there was no pressure to go to college, right? And my mom just wanted a high school diploma. So I'm like shooting pool and, doing my little hustle. And I saw Hugo. And that's, and he wound up kind of, I don't want to say he hated me, but he never liked me. Because maybe he thought, like I was just like not one of the like local dummy knuckleheads, right? There's just like some road furniture. I was more observant and aware and, blah, blah, blah. So And later when I saw him uptown, he's like, hey, get out of here. You know, he was always like, yo, fuck out of here. So, and then later in life, you know, when me and Lonnie became friends, you know, better friends, we used to speak about that. And he's like, yeah, whatever, you know.
And just for those that don't know, Lonnie is Phase 2.
Lonnie is
Phase
Phase
2.
Yeah, the great Phase 2, True himself,
And
who
Mike,
could speak like 4 languages.
he was a very profound
he could speak
character
really
indeed.
good Italian. Like I would hear Faze have a like conversational Italian. Like, I mean, I'm lucky enough. I spent a lot of time in France. My kids are half French. My French is okay. You know, it gets better when I get in country. But I could, you know, Faze would just like jump right out of a, you know, an expression and just be Italian. It was incredible. It was incredible. And his French was very good also.
And out of the UGA guys, Mike 171 took you to your first layup.
Well, you know what? Okay. No, not first, but took me to a layup.
Took you to a layup.
So we can't claim no because I was a tunnel rat in the one tunnel, and whatever, like Van Cortlandt. Like I used to. Once again, there's no line. There's nothing at the end of the one line. It's South Ferry. It used to loop around and come right back. There used to be that big like horseshoe. So there's only one end of station, and that's Van Cortlandt 242nd. Been all over that yard, been all over the one tunnel. Once again, initially, that's what I knew. Prior to the UGA and Mike and Steve, Cliff 149. No, wait, 159. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was right the first time. Only Stay High can have that. Cliff took me, Ali, Moses, Patch, like a bunch of knuckleheads from back in the day, early 73 era, to the 3-yard. And 3YB and we had a crew called Soul Artists back then. Now, mind you, we were toys. We were just trying to like have a crew. You know, okay, we could kind of, before the Ball Busters came and people took over the one tunnel as a, you know, yo, this is our spot. That was, that and the abandoned station between 96th and 86th. That was also our hometown because once again, we lived on that line. You know, those type of things made sense in graffiti. Not like it was territorial. Graffiti was not territorial. Not like you would imagine, yo, I can't go in that neighborhood. Of course you can. You're underground. You can go anywhere, right? It's not like you're even in the neighborhood. You're just in the neighborhood. It's like a weird kind of catch-22. So you could be in East New York. You could be anywhere. You could be in the, you know, Zurika Avenue, fucking Park Jet. You could be anywhere you wanted to be, but you're still within the system. Because we weren't tagging walls yet, right? It wasn't like, okay, this underground world is over, now everything lives above ground. To me, the heart of the movement always pulsated underground because that's where the trains moved the tags through the city. And yeah, shout out to people like, what was it? Moss and Tree 127 and Moss, where they did all the like low perms on a lot of stations, and like those perms lasted a long time. My God, like you always thought in the era, like, oh wow, you know, like that's kind of whatevs. But then, you know, 30 years later, the tags are still running. You're like, fuck, man, you guys, the OE3 and P13 kind of style, you know, like a cool duo that just goes out and just bombs. And that was the thing too. In the first gen, I think it was more volume spoke to fame. I mean, I remember 1980. I don't think I couldn't get on a train on the IRTs, 1, 2, 3, even like 4, 5, 6, whatever. Like that Zephyr just didn't have tags running. Like, but then like a diversity, you know, like black drippy tags, spray paint tags, silver, just the variety also, you know, but the density. Yeah.
We were at the Whitney just 2 weeks ago.
What an honor.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Culture's been elevated to a museum space.
It has.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And during the slideshow, they reveal a Gordon Motta Clark photo.
Yeah.
You were absolutely humble because the collection is from 72 to 73.
Yep.
And you said, I'm inclined to say 73.
Yeah.
Which shows a lot of humility because most people I know
of course.
really struggle with history.
Yeah.
And if they can insert themselves somewhere in the front of this chronological timeline, Most people do.
Oh, of course. That's
and it
why.
was a tremendous sign of character. So I applaud you for that, and
Well,
it was an
thank you.
amazing photo.
No, I mean, that photo, and it's funny because Roger spoke about, and once again, you know, we're actually talking about the photo that appears in the Martha Clark book, Gordon Martha Clark, you know, the hidden archive. You know, they said it was like several thousand photographs for a 50-year period. If you could just imagine that, you know. And I mean, yeah, beyond my own moment there, which was really incredible. I mean, I didn't cry, but I got emotional about it, Chino, because when the Faith of Graffiti, I mean, the thing that marvels me about this whole story is the imagery from the Faith of Graffiti, John Nahr, and all his photography that appears, is all that we knew to be true, documented in time. Other things have leaked out, Kirshheimer stations, you know, a lot of things leaked out, but nothing to the level that was revealed. And so for all these years, everything was just based on what we knew to be true. Here comes Gordon's thing, and I was just overwhelmed. Now, let's say, I mean, also, you know, I was trying to say, like, okay, is that photograph of my uni-wide, mini-wide tag on the front face of a subway car in 1973? 2-3, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't matter to me because, motherfucker, I'm there. It's proof of life.
Indeed.
And I don't care. It's not debatable. I'll take it. See, once again, I'm going to marry myself to 73 just for the fun of it all, because that's where Mike and SJK and Coco did the Lincoln Center. That's when they did the Razor Gallery. That's when me and Mark went and painted our faded train in September. So to me, that tag could have certainly been that summer, because all of these things were happening that year that I was being inspired by. So whatever it is. Timeline, right? Faith had all this Norman Mailer and big production to make a book behind it.
A lot of John Nahr photos.
With the Nahr photos. And Kurlansky's design, whatever, you know, they put it together. Gordon Martha Clark doesn't know anybody. He's got no hookups. Nobody's interested. And the thing just goes dormant.
And he's amassed a collection of over 2,500 images
Yes.
from this time period
Yes.
that were relatively unknown
Yes.
until recently.
I mean, some
So
of them leaked out. You may have seen some
a
too.
couple have over the years, and from working on Beyond the Streets,
Sure.
I was in charge of designing the, arranging the Saatchi installation in London.
Yeah,
of his
yeah. So
images.
you've seen some
So
bits.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
familiar with the collection.
Like the pistol maybe
But
had
this
leaked.
resurfacing so many years, it's
No.
almost like finding a junior high school yearbook that you didn't know existed.
Oh, without
and so
question.
many of your contemporaries. So for me, the Jamel Shabazz book.
Yes. Yes.
Jamel was shooting in Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, Clint Hill, the 5%ers at the Albee Square Mall. This was my orbit in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Wow.
So I've sat with Jamel, I've sat with Charlie, I'm in the film.
Yes.
It's almost like someone dug up my junior high school yearbook in the stick-up kids, in the B-boys,
How
in
crazy.
the outlaws, because there was a gang culture in New York at the time.
Sure.
And all of these guys that I had to avoid or were friends with are somewhere in his images. Guys I went to elementary school. So it's a real treat for me. So when you say I almost wanted to cry,
Yeah.
the nostalgia of seeing these lost artifacts and being reunited with something you maybe never thought you'd see again is priceless. And there's something magical about seeing an old photo for the first time.
No, I mean, without question, once again, it's like, you know, you don't know something exists and then you get introduced to it. But my reaction beyond my own personal happiness was, yeah, I saw the show prior to its opening. I missed the actual night of the opening. We were out of the country. But I could see the energy in the room that night at the gallery. And I was just so happy, actually, for everyone. All, you know, I mean, the thing I said of, you know, all the writers from the early 70s are all now approaching their early 70s. And here were these old timers, you know, Charmin, everybody's up in there. Just the joy on that, you know, it was like this wonderful feeling. Like I say, hey man, I'm good. I've had a wonderful story, and I'm still going to do stuff tomorrow. A lot of these individuals, for the sad, the sad reality even that, like, they are captured in time. But this only, it's not like it's a 50-year-old bookend, but it does kind of now, because back then when it was in its infancy, no one knew what's going on. Now we can put that next to faith and go, wow, look at everything that happened essentially from the same period. You know, you'd be putting Mata's book out of order by putting it at the end here, because they're both really back in that initial timeline. And for me, it just gives more of a body to all these other artists whose tags we see, who may not be with us, who don't want to show up to the opening because they didn't get compensated. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, to the whole stew of it all. But in the end, I always feel like, let's take one for the team, right? You know, it's all for the greater good of our story. And I feel like that unearthed archive just enriches it, really, and gives them more power to the architectural school of it.
And one thing that I think binds, or all creatives or artists have in common, is that at some point we'd like to be acknowledged for the good work that we produce. And historically, there's been such a narrow distribution of graffiti images, primarily IRT.
Yeah.
There's a certain window from the early to mid-'80s that's really got an abundance of stuff. So for so many of these guys that the books might have missed, there was a spotlight turned on them today.
Yeah.
And they were finally acknowledged for some of the good work that they produce. And I think that that's some of the magic. It makes it what's so special about the archive, is seeing guys like Henry sitting next to Snake, signing black books, and being appreciated for the work. It might have taken a little while. I always say this, is that progress is a process.
Oh, without
And unfortunately, it took some time. But, you know, watching Snake with a marker in his hand and a crowd around him smile,
and it's very tough in the world we live in. You know, maybe it just takes 50 years to bear out all of this reality. You know, it's because, let's be clear, I think this whole movement was moving way ahead of its time. You know, it's like we've always been operating a bit ahead of our time. You know, we were just moving quicker, I guess, you know, and that might have been the New York pace of the movement. You know, we weren't waiting, we weren't asking for permission, you know, we were just getting on with it. And yeah, I mean, it's great to look at that moment in history as documented by Gordon's work. And then also his personal story too, which I didn't know as much about him as the artist he was, and those cutouts he was doing in the Bronx, and, you know, things like that. It's kind of like radical, but
it's
once
real
again,
DIY culture right there at its finest. It's him just taking charge and doing it on his own terms.
You know, you couldn't tell a young person to imagine life in New York City in 1973. They couldn't. You couldn't. I mean, first of all, you know, shout out to, they may have just been going to the new police car. You know, they shout out to the old black and green, you know, the old school police vehicles. But that's another time. You know, and yeah, what he was doing, not just DIY, I thought it was like super radical, but yeah, I'm so grateful for his effort, you know, and his passion there, because once again, it wasn't like Nar with Faith probably had a paid gig to go out and shoot stuff. He's just doing it on the strength of, like, he gets the rebellion of it, you know, he gets the, yeah, I'm trying to identify, you know, whatever, marking, you know. And I think, once again, you know, I've always thought, like, from those early days, like, I'm a graffiti writer. You know, I don't want it twisted, you know, like, I had no pretense in the beginning, like I was even an artist. It wasn't about being an artist. It was just about self-identification, you know. And my story is also specific in the sense that, like, you know, I've told this before, but when I moved to graffiti as the answer or the search, the quest, it was because I was told that my parents weren't my biological family. So and when that information came in 1970, at 15, I was already like, oh, okay, so what now, if you will? No drama, no trauma, but some question marks. And once again, to me, the cliche of, hey, I saw the writing on the wall, and this spoke to me. Well, of course it did, because it said to me like, it was like some, beautiful creature asking me to come join, something very, I really needed that. I think I needed the movement then, because now my little, oh my God, well, now I'm Futura. I'm trying to be a graffiti writer in New York. That's who I am.
And can I ask you something? I was afraid to touch on this, and you touched on it at the museum, and I felt like we were in a safe space.
Okay.
About this. Columbus Day, 1974, I believe. Was it Columbus Day? You were in the one tunnel with Ali, Mark Emmons.
Labor Day 73.
Labor Day 73. I
Correct.
had the wrong year and the wrong holiday.
Yes,
but
yes.
I
You're on it, yep.
Okay.
And that's when the fated accident occurred.
And from those that don't know.
Yeah. So Mark Andre Edmonds, my dear friend since childhood, we grew up in this, his building was right next, I grew up in 242, he grew up in 250. We grew up on the same block. We were boys. And we're painting in the one tunnel. This is our, now having been inspired by 1973 and the Razor Gallery and graffiti artists are trying to make paintings, and we're not there yet, but let's do a piece on a train. Let's not tag the insides. Let's actually do a piece. And strangely enough, in the White Column show, there was an outline of a Futura piece, if you will, from see that outline that was featured there next to the tag, that is from 73. That's from Mark's collection, which got legacy to this individual who contributed that piece. It's not mine. But that's the piece I tried to do in the tunnel. Now, it's not like tunnel worn. I didn't bring it to the tunnel with me, so it's not like burns.
Sure.
But it's that thing I left at Mark's house, like, oh, I'm going to do something like this. Because I didn't have stuff on paper. It was like, oh, this one I'm going to do. It's in my head. I'll work it out. So that was an interesting kind of combo. And that drawing is definitely 73. Because that's the drawing that I tried to do on this train that night. Anyway, I'm painting, he's painting. I'm on the right side of the center doors, he's on the left side. The paint, there was a flash of light, there was a flammable moment, and Mark was burned. We exited, and shortly after that incident, there was an article in the Times. It was a subsequent story and follow-up. I didn't meet Hickey and Ski, but I met some graffiti police as a result of that story. And within 4 or 5 months, I joined the military. Because when they came to me, the authorities, if you will, I said to them, well, look, this is a tragedy. My friend's still in the hospital. I'm done. I'm turning 18 in November. And shortly thereafter, because I was 17 in September of 73, I'm going in the military. So, I'm done. And, no face, no case, no cameras, nobody caught me doing anything. It's someone's word against, So I wasn't going to cop to it, but I also said,
were probably the two greatest sources of information at that time. I got to learn about how brilliant Ali was and how forward-thinking he was.
He really was.
Coined the phrase New York, and there were so many important things. The zine that he created and the band that he was in and the work that
J.
he was
Walter
producing.
Negro. His band was called J. Walter Negro and the Loose Joints.
There are videos on YouTube, so you can find it if you're if anyone is interested.
I think Shoot the Pump was his big hit. But I wanted to say in '94, when we did the symposium and the exhibition at 6th Congress in Tucson, we all did a little video clips of ourselves just to introduce us to the audience and something that, you know, some content they could see about the artist. And Mark gave an interview. And in Mark's interview, the responsibility, I know what's up out there. And everything back here is pale by comparison. This shit's easy. You know, I've worked a real job. I know leadership responsibility. Well, I know all these things, or at least I think I do. And all I needed from him was, hey man, I'm sorry for how that went down. Let's move ahead. And we never had that moment of closure until this day. And then after we left, he died within a week. I got a call from his mother. That made me feel even more emotional in the sense of like, wow, like he had to have been troubled by this his whole life for not dealing with it perhaps. And once he had, well, he's good, right? I mean, that's how I perceived it, because why then would he have, you see what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like you could have done it back then. We could have been, you know, could have been done it. So it's a sad, tragic ending, but in a way I'm grateful that at least, you know, you told the truth about that day. You know, Lee was there, like I say, like my contemporary, you know, we all saw it. And it was quite moving, you know, because once again, like there was always this mystery of like, hey, is Lenny telling the truth? You know, and the funny thing is like all the new, you know, New York Times is called like, you know, all the news that's fit to print, right? That's their motto. And we always believed all this kind of, you know, academic, you know, intellectual paper, whatever, you know, you're truthful. But I'll tell you, I lost my confidence in printed media, actually.
I join you with that. One of my good friends was on trial years ago, and I found myself obsessing, reading newspaper stories daily, and the only thing that they got right was his name.
My God.
And I was like, they're assassinating his character. And what I learned was that speculation is worthy of the first 4 pages of the newspaper.
Wow.
And when they make a mistake, you'll find it in an inch-by-inch box next to the Daily Jumble. It's not prioritized to tell you they made a mistake.
I understand.
It's somewhere sandwiched between the Daily Jumble and your horoscope.
Yeah. But as long as they put it in there, then they've covered their... Yeah,
or at least they feel, and also the first casualty in any war is going to always be the truth.
The truth, no doubt.
So this is fascinating, and I'm inclined to think, maybe I'm wrong, that you're the first graffiti artist that has written graffiti, joined the military, and then came back and resumed graffiti. And in 1980, you paint the Brakes car, which is pretty monumental. I'm just curious what the inspiration for this was.
Well, in the summer of '80 or a few months in 1980, Zephyr and I ran this program called, or a project called SE Studios. It was a rental we had in the Upper East Side, like kind of studio apartment for a couple of months. And we kind of recruited all of the writers of that moment to come through. It was furnished with materials, canvases, paint, you know, markers, black books. Like we had everything there. It was like a, you know, youth workshop to come paint.
It was a who's who, by the way, because there's Mackie, there's Dondi, there's you, there's Bill Rock.
Yeah.
All of Shy 147, all of my favorite graffiti, the guys that made me want to write graffiti.
Butch and Case came in and, you know, vamped the paint. Like Lee came in for an interview. He refused because in 1979, he had the first exhibition in Rome. So we were all, you know, Lee was on a pedestal at that time and, you know, still is for me. But just to say that we ran this program, and I was one of the, you know, kind of managers of that studio. We stretched all the canvases. We did everything, me and Zeph. We opened, we closed. We ran that thing like clockwork for a couple of months. At the end of that period, I'd seen everybody paint. I'd seen all the technical abilities. You know, I mean, whenever I was observing people painting, I was just watching, learning. And it'd be the kind of thing now, like if you went to one of these festivals and there's like 10 or 15 artists, and you get a chance to walk around and watch people work. It's pretty cool. Like you see their technical style. So after all of that, I wanted to do because I was already like, you know what, I'm out of here, you know. I'm tagging up randomly. I gotta do a whole car. You know, Dondi's my best friend. I'm hanging out with Zeph. I'm like, damn, I gotta do a whole car. So, but I was like, okay, I gotta do something that's not been done. You know, I'm not trying to come up and do a Futura piece right now. And so for me, Break was about what
I want you all to pay attention to the really important things. Everything that happened before doesn't matter. You need to live here and now. Stay strong, and I'll show you how it is. You are listening to Soul Harvest. And now prepare your souls.
On his head.